All right, now for the United States, it is the beginning of a new era and the end of another. Now, today, the curtain draws on the administration of President Donald Trump, but this is an unprecedented inauguration. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will assume office as the 46th president and vice president of the United States. It is coming at a time when the country is battling the devastating effect of a pandemic and a country divided more than before in its recent history. In response to a national security threat, 25,000 National Guard Reserve soldiers have been deployed in an unusual move to provide security during the inauguration. The FBI had earlier warned of possible protests across the nation by right-wing extremists emboldened by the invasion. All right, joining me now in the studio is Foreign Affairs Analyst Victor Khai. Victor, it's nice to see you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Great.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Good to see you, really. And I also, we have the global president ready to lead, and Joe Biden, Harris, African diaspora team promoter. God bless Otubere, joining me on Skype. God bless, good morning. It's good to see you this morning.
It's good to see you too. Good morning and happy inauguration to all our people in the U.S. and
thank you very much.
friends here.
I know you would have been in Washington today if not for the pandemic, but somehow we'll do it from anywhere. Okay, let's begin from the studio, Victor. The inauguration today is a glorious day, let me say, in the United States, and
depending on what side of the divide you're on.
Yeah, well, the point is,
but go ahead.
Whatever divides it. The inauguration of a president of the United States is always a big deal for the country because it brings in a new direction of things.
True.
But talking about the trend in the build-up to this inauguration, I wonder, especially what happened from the election and then the build-up to the 6th of January. I wonder what was going on through your mind when you were seeing all of those, knowing what America is known for?
Well, I was worried because of the huge ego of the president, outgoing president, such a narcissist. And it's like a bull, it was like a bull in a china shop. But what gave me comfort was the fact that for Americans, it's, as you would say, country first, not the individual. The institutions are very strong, and no single individual is more powerful than the institution. And ultimately, it was always going to be a triumph for democracy, irrespective of Trump's feelings and all of that. And you would have seen that in the days leading to the inauguration. Even the kind of farewell that Trump had hoped for, it was denied. I mean, so this is to say that, yes, Mr. President, and they'll give you, with all due respect and all that, but you see, this is about America. It's about democracy. And it triumphed in the end. So for those who are waiting by the corner to make a mockery of America, Americans in the end proved that democracy will always trump it. Sorry on the play on words. You know, so and that's what happened in the end. And I'm quite glad that the way everything turned out.
Yeah. All right, now, God bless. Let me bring you in here. I wonder, this inauguration is a different kind of inauguration based on the fact that it's coming on the heels of the pandemic. It's so unusual. It has never really been like this in the history of the United States, where people will not be present, not because they didn't want to, but because of the pandemic. I wonder what kind of inauguration you envisage today.
Well, it is still going to be the inauguration of the 46th president of the United States and the vice president. What we will not just have is like we discussed yesterday, the huge crowd lining all the way from the Lincoln Memorial all the way to the Washington Monument and through Capitol and the National Mall. But it is still going to be the transition to a new administration as it has been in America for the last, many years, over 200 20 plus years now, where that tradition is held, strong, no matter what has happened. So we're going to see the coming back, and I call it America, Africa arising, actually, because this is actually democracy saying to everyone who's watching that the government of, by, and for the people is still possible on this earth. So whilst we may not have all the crowd as we would ordinarily want to see, this is also going to be an interesting one where we are dealing with a pandemic, and we're still making progress, even as we lead our people on this side of heaven.
All right. Let me stay with you. God bless. President Trump certainly is leaving office as it is, but putting his 4 years into perspective, what do you think Trump's legacy, his biggest legacy, will be?
I mean, in one word, would be the president who incited a mob to attack his own country, just because he was power drawn and he wanted to stay on as against the dictates of the American democracy. Everything that he may have achieved, when you look at it closely, we cannot totally say that the president didn't do anything good. It's just that everything he did, you can say maybe 90 was just awful. Maybe he had some few wins that even his last action sort of just eroded everything. So his legacy is one that is really bad and lame, because we look at what is going to happen to him, and it's a huge call to death, and I think it's going to happen to him. Usually, former presidents of the U.S. gets classified briefings even after they leave office. He's one of the presidents that, the intelligence community is already saying, we don't think we want to continue giving this guy information because we don't trust what he's going to do with it. And then he's the only human being or president in the United States that has been impeached twice. And the fact that he could draw moral equivalence between white supremacists and peaceful protesters in Charlottesville, and you see his reaction to Black Lives Matter and how he panders to alt-right groups, it just shows a very difficult reality. And that name, Trump, would become almost closely related to a particular name that we also abhor here in Nigeria, moving forward.
All right. Now, Victor, in his farewell video he posted on YouTube last night. Should I say last night? Yeah, last night before his leaving. He was saying that he has created the biggest economy in world history. That was part of what he said. Do you think that is part of his legacy? Do you see it so? Do you see from the unemployment rates to all of those? Do you see America as the biggest economy comparative to what it used to be?
In a football match, you can score 100 goals. What matters is how many goals are scored against you. Without a doubt, he started out very well. And in terms of the economy, everything was working out very well until the pandemic.
Until the pandemic, yeah.
And so we're not going to ignore the pandemic. It wiped out all the gains. I mean, it wiped out the gains. Let me not just say all of the gains, Not his fault, but nevertheless, that's what happened. So yes, if he had continued without the pandemic, he probably would have done, that legacy would have stood. But I mean, you're not going to be talking about 100 goals you scored. What's going to count is the goal difference. And that's the way it is at the end of the day. And in any case, his other legacy, if you like, has beclouded, or made nonsense of the gains. The thing about Trump is, he's a trumpet of his achievements.
I think I like your use of words.
So he will trumpet it, blow it, to
the world,
ridiculous proportions, and it doesn't matter. And he is so glib. He lies so. I mean, he lies so easily, you know, that, and you know the thing about lies is if you tell one too often, you not only begin to believe it, but people around you almost start to believe it as well. So he's a master of the art. And so it's okay to make such a claim, but is that the reality on the ground? The answer is certainly no.
Right.
COVID was his biggest enemy. I'm sure it frustrated him. The gods must have conspired against him in that regard.
like they say.
You know, and you would have noticed as well that, you know, America had the unenviable record of having the highest number of cases, highest number of deaths, and so that's a legacy he'll have to live with as well. Yeah. You know, so blame it on the gods if you want.
Maybe we'll blame the gods. Well, they say the gods are not to blame anytime. Well, because they are wise. The gods are always wise. So
in Africa, I don't know about America. They don't believe in the gods.
Let me stay with you. Yes. Now, the point there is, if you watch Trump administration in their interface with the media, at different times there has been drama between he and reporters, presenters, media stations, and all of that. Now, if you consider the First Amendment of the United States that talks about the freedom of expression and freedom of all, but if he doesn't want it in a certain way, then you're not good. How would you rate Trump interface with the media and engagement with the media in his 4 years?
The media is the apprentice and he's the boss. So if you watched The Apprentice, you would have noticed that he was, how do I put it now? He was the ultimate boss.
Yes.
His word
He's the one who can fire.
His bond. Yes.
Who can fire
exactly.
Hire.
Yes. You cannot question, you know, his authority. And
even when you're heartbroken from, you're fired.
Exactly. That's the word. You're fired.
The way he says it, the way he says it with all authority, you're fired. Yes. And you're heartbroken, but he doesn't look at you. Too
bad. Exactly. Yeah. And the thing is that, you know, he saw his presidency as the ultimate reality show. In fact, that was reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For him, you know, so what he was doing, you know, in office was, first, remember, he never expected to be president. He just went in to try. And somehow, things just worked out in his favor. I can't say he was prepared, but nevertheless, he's had leadership positions even if in his company's businesses. And he assumed power. And getting in there, he saw power like he never imagined. The fact that he was like a mini god, okay? And for that reason, what he you know, at that point, he couldn't imagine, if it was in Africa, in a military regime, you say bloody civilian, you know, in this case, the press, questioning his authority, questioning him. He couldn't take it, you know, and so his reaction is nothing more than who he really is, and that's what came to. And unfortunately, it worked against him because you see, if you may fight anybody else, but you don't fight the media. When you do that,
you will never win.
Yes, if they put the searchline on you, there's nothing you can.
You will never win.
You will never win.
You will never win the war against the media.
Yes,
because the point is, it may only be the matter of time.
Yes,
you may have your day to day, but ultimately you cannot win against the media.
No, you can't,
and in fact, the idea is it's not even good to pitch battles against the media.
No.
The media, like you were saying, that he likes to trumpet his. The media will be your biggest trumpet if you're doing the right thing for the people. Now, God bless. Let's come to the issue of today's inauguration. Now, the whole world will be watching. More than several billions will be watching what's going on today from across the world, how it is going to, you know, play out. But there's a heavy responsibility on security agencies from the reports they're hearing from here and there across the country, preparing to ensure that everything goes on well today. What are you assessing from the heavy security presence, about 25,000 National Guard troops available in Washington to ensure everything goes well today?
Like we also stated yesterday, even in our earlier segment, I mean, it's hard to find Washington D.C. That militarized. On inauguration, we were hoping that the tradition of peaceful transfer of power would continue, but I mean, with what has happened at the Capitol just about over a week ago, we want to be a bit more cautious, especially as maybe you're the United States of America, where everyone out there is potentially an enemy trying to catch you. And now the U.S. is dealing with internal security challenges and homegrown radicalization. So I think that it's important that what we're seeing on the streets of DC happens. For me, it's an inauguration that is happening at a time where uh, the world is experiencing a huge setback with the pandemic, and then you find the biggest, the world's darling democracy just went through a huge attack, and a way to protect the president who is going to be sworn in, the president-elect now who's going to be sworn in, that level of security had happened. And then another thing again that I know that the FBI is also discussing in the top military chiefs, and they're vetting the military personnel that they have deployed even in DC, because they also fear an insider attack may happen. Because when you look at the footages that came out from the Capitol attack, you find retired veterans on duty, off duty cops that from Virginia and other parts of America that took part in that insurrection. So we're just going to see a whole lot of carefully choreographed inauguration today. But at the end of today, by 12 noon American time, 12 noon American time today, nuclear football with Trump will start working, and Joe Biden will become the most powerful man in the world. And Vice President Kamala Harris will make history. The first woman to be sworn in as the Vice President of the United States.
All right, now let's talk about the same thing here in the studio, Victor. He was talking about the militarized Washington, D.C. It really hasn't been this way before, because there's usually heavy security presence in Washington, but you will not see uniformed men here and there, because it's never really been like that. But with the invasion or the insurrection, so to say, of the Capitol, invasion of the Capitol, which was an insurrection on the 6th, it drew attention to the heavy burden on how to ensure that the inauguration becomes peaceful. Now, what does that tell? Recall that over the weekend, there was this guy from Virginia who was arrested with inauguration accreditation, fake inauguration accreditation card. He had ammunition on him and all of that in his car. What does all of those things tell? What signals are they sending?
It just talks about the great divide. There's a lot of, I must say, hypocrisy in America, yes. Many who pretend that all is well, but it's obvious that there's a divide. And the divide is further heightened by the fear of many whites, not just the supremacists, about the dominance by people who are not Caucasian. And that includes, Asians, blacks, and all of that. So it's okay for people, people will just pretend and smile, but there's a deep-seated fear. There's racism, okay? Now, and that's what caused the attack on the Capitol. This election was won, and that's a lesson also for politicians, and maybe for us in Nigeria as well, and for people who truly want change. This election was won not by the whites who voted, because it came out en masse, but by the blacks and other minorities who would usually be apathetic during elections. You understand? So the fact that they came out in their numbers was what made the difference. The usual voters, white voters, came out. But the difference is those who would not normally come out from the other side came out.
So they made a strong statement.
They made a strong statement.
Wow.
They came out because of Abu Mayang. No, sorry, did I get that? No.
Kamala Harris?
No, not Kamala Harris. Sorry. No, the guys that died. The blacks that died. I'm trying to remember the names, and my mind just went blank. But it's okay. They came out because Black Lives Matter. Let me put it that way. Many blacks that died. And by the way, let me chip this in before I forget. This election is an African election. No, listen, we say Biden-Harris. I'd rather say Joseph Kamala. Okay, I just wanted to chip that in.
You're giving them a new name today.
This is Joe, no, but it's not a new name. It's Joe Kamala.
Yeah.
It sounds African.
Yeah,
okay,
actually.
I just wanted to chip that in.
Kamala Harris actually has African descent, so it's fine. You're still right.
So Joseph Kamala, it sounds more like a Ugandan name or a Swahili name. Anyway, so this is about, if you like, the African Americans, the blacks and all that who came out.
Yeah.
So it is actually a Joseph Kamala election. So that's what made the difference.
Okay.
As for the insecurity, like I said, it just tells you about the deep-seated fear. That attack was the fact that they couldn't stand the fact. I mean, it's a white man there. Joe Biden is white. But what they realize now is that their champion is no longer going to be on the seat. That man who would, when they kill blacks, just turn his face and act like, look, there's nothing wrong with it, is no longer going to be there. So that's why they feel, the way they feel. And as for security, this is one time when, even though no one has said it, but I can tell you that the selection process for the National Guards and those who are coming will be based on social media accounts. Because that's what tells your inclination. They would have taken time to screen them, because it's about what you say, and things
and
like
things to react to.
Exactly. So your history, not everyone may know, but sometimes consciously and unconsciously you let go what you call the Freudian slip on Facebook. You say what you like, for instance, the kind of posts that you like, the kind of things that you post. It would have used that as a criteria for who will be there for security. They will deploy a satellite that can actually see very clearly human beings on ground. There will be snipers that you don't see. Amongst the people, there will be many ununiformed, perhaps more ununiformed security
agents than the one you can see.
Than the ones you can see. Because, as I said in the beginning, this is about America. It's not about any individual. And it's about democracy. And because they're the true champions of democracy, leading champions of democracy, they'll do everything to protect the integrity of the system.
All right. Now, God bless. Let me come to you. I remember you made this point, the point that Victor made now, what is fueling the fears and all of that. You made this point sometime when we were talking recently. But I wonder how long it would take before Americans will come to that realization that being an American is more than being white or black or Caucasian or being Hispanic or African or Muslim, as the case may be. There's an ideology that binds the way we understand it. Being an American goes further than being black or being white or being any. How long before these understanding begin to sink in for people to understand?
Like we said yesterday, there may be 75 million on one side of the divide, and then you have 81 million on the other side. It means that a vast majority of Americans already understand and imbibe this ideology of who, an American is, irrespective of what the situation is. The ordinary American is global in his or her thinking. And if you permit me, one of the things we discussed yesterday, and part of what we're looking at setting today, is what next for the African continent, especially on Inauguration Day, where Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris is taking off. Jokingly, the guest at the studio has said it is Joseph Kamala. It's an African.
He's given them a baptismal name today.
It's a name. It's a name.
The truth is this. The part where I'm really focused is the opportunity for the African continent. And not just because Kamala Harris has African descent, but also because of the fact that the African policy under Joseph Biden's and Kamala Harris administration will be better off. There will be a lot of attention. There will be, there'll be a repurposing of the ideals that guide American interactions with the continent. There's been so much soft, diplomacy happening for a long time. We're trying to do a research to one that involves infrastructure, education, and not just those aids that come from USAID and what the Americans do in health. But now we want to see a much more direct engagement with the continent in terms of how we empower our young people with businesses and grants and support across African American businesses happening in agriculture. Just the same way we've seen all the countries coming on the continent to invest and do business. The new policy under Joseph R. Biden and Kamala Harris will put Africa not just as another, low-hanging fruit continent, no, but as partners on the table, mutually, doing business and promoting democracy, so that the authoritarian grip of some of the people who are going to lead in Africa, we can break them by improving on our democratic practices and improving our institutions. So for me, I just think that the question about the Americans and how they imbibe this ideology, that is already settled. Joseph Biden is going to bring everyone together, that I believe. And trust me, the Americans know when to draw the line at some point. And now that Trump is out of the line, out of the view, for real, and out of that White House, he has no Twitter and all those things to continue his hate agenda. We're going to heal, we're going to heal America, and it's going to spread across the world. We're going to do a lot of things, and I believe that it's just going to be a new time for American Africa rising.
All right. Now, Victor, the former President Clinton, Bush, Obama will all be at the inauguration later today. And Vice President Mike Pence will also be there. But this morning, President Trump will be leaving for Florida. And he will be the first U.S. president not to attend the inauguration as in the first president after Andrew Johnson in 1869 not to attend. That's about over 150 years ago. What does this really symbolize or mean when the president is not attending inauguration for him to formally, do all of that ceremony?
I'm going to use a very hard language. It's good riddance to bad rubbish. It's English language. It's an idiom, okay? He had an opportunity, a last chance to save his face. He could have just attended. He has a way of stealing show. That could have been news. He could have disappointed his, I think what he really wanted was, he wanted to fly out in Air Force One, because if he had attended, the same plane would take him out, but it wouldn't be called Air Force One. So he wanted to go out in grand style. He also wanted a grand style farewell, which he was denied. Yeah. But he could have just used the opportunity, regardless, to attend and disappoint those who would have predicted the fact that he wasn't going to be there. But in his usual way, Trump is always going to be Trump.
Yeah, Trump will be Trump.
So, but quite frankly, no one's going to miss him. And I don't think he'll be welcome at any future inaugurations either. So he's had what he's always wished for, maybe secretly, but and that's just it. He has been president. He has made a name as one who has been impeached
twice,
and then that's it. But the legacies he's hoping for, the positive legacies he's hoping for, he has trashed.
All right, we have to leave you here now. Thank you very much, Victor Hai, for your time and insight on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
God bless Otubere. Thank you so much for your time on the program as well. We really appreciate you.
As always. Thank you for having me as always.
Thank you.
And happy inauguration, America.
Happy inauguration. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes.